Hello, everyone. My name is Jude Currivan. I'm a cosmologist, a planetary healer, a futurist. I'm the author of now 7 books, latterly The Cosmic Hologram and forthcoming The Story of GAIA. I'm a member of the Evolutionary Leaders Circle, and I co-founded in 2017 WholeWorld-View. So I've been invited to speak with you today about how the emerging understanding of a conscious and evolutionary universe, a whole worldview, can guide our conscious evolution. So I started this journey really when I was 4 years old, because back then, when I was a little girl growing up in the north of England, I had an experience of a discarnate voice speaking to me. And I heard that voice in my head, and being 4 years old, I was curious. So I began a journey of really experiencing multidimensional realities all my life and communicating with consciousness and archetypes of many different ways in many different levels. And that's been a lifelong journey for me, and it's taken me into some very adventurous territory. But what it did from the very beginning was it literally opened me up to my own direct experience of the nature of reality beyond what we often term it to be. In other words, our physical universe. And along that journey, I began to study physics and cosmology and did a master's degree at Oxford University because I wanted to understand how my experiences of the world were sort of gelling with how science was describing the physical universe. And what I discovered was that the science that I was being taught at school and at university did not gel with my own perceptions and my own experiences. But what I was finding was that I was also drawn to read ancient wisdom, the teachings of sort of ancient Egypt, of ancient India, of many other traditions that were actually describing reality far closer to what I was experiencing directly. And perhaps the closest of those was the ancient Indian teachings of the Vedic rishis or wise teachers. And they described the world in terms of consciousness, in terms of mind and consciousness, and the nature of reality as being fundamentally made up of consciousness. So beyond the sort of apparent physicality of our universe, they were teaching, and their traditions and their writings come down to us in the form of the Bhagavad Gita and the Upanishads and other deeply wise writings based on their own experiences and their own intuitive understanding of the nature of reality itself. So when I was growing up, I was delving deep into these ancient wisdom teachings, my own experiences, and also the leading edge of science. And that's been a journey that continues to this day. And so it seems to me that at a point in our own journey of a human species where we literally are discovering ever more deeply who we really are and perhaps remembering who we really are. And so I'd like to spend a few minutes explaining a little bit about the last 100 years or so of science very quickly, and then where that took us and why that took us to a place that, whilst it was amazing in terms of the discoveries it brought forward, and especially the technologies it brought forward, nonetheless, it didn't address the really deeper perspectives of the nature of reality, and how now scientific breakthroughs at all scales of existence and across many, many different fields of research are taking us a huge step forward, and what I feel that means to us at this pivotal point in our collective human journey. So I'd like to just take a step back and really talk about the last 100 years, because up to the end of the 19th century, science had developed in a way that was mechanistic. It was a science of objects, of things, and yet from its beginning, people like Isaac Newton had a very spiritual perspective of the nature of reality. Nonetheless, the circumstances of those times meant that actually to keep to keep healthy, it was better not to delve into a spiritual depth of an understanding, but to concentrate on the appearance of the physical world. And in doing so, Newton and those that followed him brought forward incredible understandings and discoveries. Newton, for example, discovered or began to understand the nature of gravity, why objects fall to earth. And in doing so, and sitting under an apple tree at his family home, in the middle of a pandemic in 1666, he had his year of miracles. And when he saw an apple fall from that tree, and that tree, by the way, is still there and still fruiting apples, he understood that it was the earth that was pulling down all objects that live on its surface. But he took a major leap forward in that he realized that the same effect of gravity that pulled apples and people down to the Earth's surface kept the planets in their orbits around our sun. So he extended what was happening on Earth to what was happening in the heavens. And that was the first time, really, that a scientific approach had expanded beyond this sort of being here and now into a much larger scale. He also brought forward an understanding of the laws of motion, how things move, which was incredibly powerful. We still use his laws of motions to guide the paths of satellites. His laws of motions pretty much got us to the moon in 1969, and yet it went so far but no further. So with his understanding, with the understanding of many, many other scientists to follow him, with the understanding, for example, of people like James Clerk Maxwell, that realized that apparently very different phenomena had the same underlying cause, in Maxwell's case, electricity and magnetism, that he brought together in electromagnetism. Scientists were delving deeper and deeper and further out into the cosmos. And yet, by the end of the 19th century, phenomena were being discovered that could not be understood in that paradigm of objects and things and separation. And at the end of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century, a revolution took place, where those objects, those Newtonian mechanistic way of looking at the world, needed to change in the light of new discoveries and unexplained phenomena. And so the pioneers of quantum physics, and Albert Einstein, the great Albert Einstein, who understood that space and time of themselves were relative to an observer and needed to be brought together, just as Maxwell had with electricity and magnetism. Einstein did it with space and time and brought them into this invariance of space-time, which explains how our universe can exist and evolve and why we're having this conversation today. And that was a huge step forward. The quantum physicists also realized that energy and matter was not continuous, but made up of literally quantized little packets of frequency and wavelength, which again we realize, had that not been the case, our universe could not be as it is. The laws of physics could not be as they are. And yet, with the understanding of quantum, the quantum realm and quantum mechanics and relativity theory, there was a huge elephant still in the room. And that was understanding the nature of consciousness. And even though those pioneers, those great 20th century pioneers, in many cases realized and actually understood that in some way or other, consciousness had a huge part to play in our understanding of the world. Nonetheless, in the main, science moved on and pushed that question: what is the nature of consciousness? And perhaps what is its role in the deeper understanding of the nature of reality to our worldview and to our future? 100 years have passed. We're now in the 21st century, and just as 100 years ago, phenomena are coming forward that cannot be understood by that mainstream paradigm where consciousness is peripheralized. Instead, and again, due to recent discoveries and a recent reappraisal of a deeper nature of the world, cosmologists, physicists, scientists across many, many different, numerous fields of research, including evolutionary biology to sociologists, as well as cosmologists, and at all scales of existence, are appreciating that the appearance of our universe, its energy, its matter, its space, its time, are what we call emergent phenomena. In other words, they're not fundamental. They emerge from deeper levels and realms of causation. And we're also realizing the fundamental role that information plays, the same information that underpins our communication technologies, the same ones and zeros which enables us to have a conversation today, because my image is captured, the light of my image is captured, converted into whole strings of ones and zeros, which actually are meaningful in that they describe my image. They then go through the camera of my laptop, they go down through the internet, they come into the camera of everybody's laptop that's part of our conversation today, and then they're retranslated into my image, and not just my image, but the words I'm speaking. So our technologies convert the reality of images, of phenomena, into whole strings of meaningful information, digitized information, and then retranslate it as images, as sounds, as phenomena. What we're realizing, and this is a radical new view of reality, but it's one that I think the ancient Vedic scholars would recognize and applaud. I'm sure it's one that the quantum pioneers such as Max Planck, the Albert Einstein himself, and David Bohm, who in the 1990s was understanding this at a very early stage, is that more fundamental than energy, matter, and space-time, the appearance of our universe, is its underlying causation that is literally informed information, meaningful information. And that meaningful information we're finding out is expressed as the energy, matter, space-time appearance of our universe. And what it means is that essentially mind and consciousness aren't something we have, but literally what we and the whole world are. And this new ancient vision is describing our universe more in terms of a great thought than a great thing. It's also showing that the same informational patterns underpin all reality, all that we call our universe, at all scales of existence. So the same relational patterns that actually are there at the scale of atoms repeat themselves at the scale of river coastlines, of clouds, meteorology, of the way that collective human behaviours are, the way that cities grow, the way that earthquakes happen, all the way through to the entire appearance of our planetary home. They show up throughout our solar system in the way that the planets relate with each other, the way that the energies sent out by our sun are in such patterns called fractals. They appear at the scales of galaxies and vast webs of galaxies, and they appear to fill the entirety of space itself. So we're now having more and more evidence that these informational patterns, which arise from deeper pre-physicalized realms of causation, are the deeper fundamental nature of reality. And we're also realizing from the study of black holes and expanding that study of black holes and the information that they embed, not in their volumes, but in their surfaces, their surface areas, we have an understanding of something that is named the holographic principle. And this is a story that's 30 or more years old, but it's showing that not only is our universe innately informed, but it is also holographically manifest, literally a cosmic hologram. So we have now a new story. We have a new narrative, and it's a narrative that is expressing how our universe exists and evolves as a unified entity, and where it has an innate impulse to evolve. It began 13.8 billion years ago, we now discover, not in the apparent chaos, though implied chaos, of a Big Bang, which wasn't big and it wasn't a bang, it was minute. But instead of the implied chaos of a bang, it began an incredibly ordered, unbelievably fine-tuned way. It had everything embodied, embedded within its intelligence, in its informational reality from the very beginning, to exist and evolve, but to exist to evolve. So that very first moment, instead of a Big Bang, was the first moment of an ongoing big breath. And again, that is something that the ancient Vedic scholars spoke of. They spoke of the unfolding of our universe as a breath, a Brahman. We now know that indeed, as space expands and as time flows, our universe exists to evolve in the form of a big breath, from simplicity to complexity, to ever greater levels of self-awareness, individuation, a realization of interdependency and ultimate interbeing. So this is a new narrative, but it's an ancient narrative. But crucially, vitally, it's a unitive new narrative, because it describes a universe whose unity is expressed in radical diversity. And it describes a universe that, as the quantum physicists understood, within space-time, where the speed of light is a speed cop, which enables causality to be maintained. So yesterday, before today, before tomorrow. What it is describing is a universe where yesterday embodied less information than it does today, than it will tomorrow. And that's this progress as space expands and time flows, that our universe is embodying ever more experience, evolutionary complexity, self-awareness. And because it is doing so at a universal scale where the universe exists and evolves as a unified entity, our universe knows itself. It simultaneously knows itself, just as we know ourselves as human beings. Literally, if all our cells, our 37 trillion cells that make us up, are coherently interconnected and innately informed, then we essentially ourselves are cells of a universe that is also innately interconnected and informed. And we are its microcosmic co-creators, because nothing in our unified universe is separate from anything else. It's differentiated, it's individuated, but it's not separate. And so we, as part of this journey to this point, we've gone through a phase, as it were, of exploration, where to actually undertake that exploration, we've chosen to take things apart and see what makes them up. And it's yielded incredible levels of knowledge. But it's rather like my friend Deepak Chopra said, it's rather like taking apart a radio and then wondering where the music has gone to. And in the last few decades, what we've been doing is realizing that we can only understand a deeper level of our universe as reality if we start looking at the wholes of things as well as their parts. And that wholes means ecosystems, it means our entire planetary home Gaia and beyond. But at a more fundamental level still, it's that realization of the wholes or the holons that scale up and scale down from the tiniest to the entirety of our universe, are fundamentally mind and consciousness exploring itself as a great thought in the infinite and eternal mind of the cosmos. So we're at a level now, we're at a very exciting moment now, we're at a very challenging moment now, where the mainstream science of materialist separation has essentially brought us to a point of unsustainability, because it speaks to separation, and it is fundamentally flawed. But what we have now is an emergent and ever more compelling and ever greater accumulation of evidence of wholeness, of unity and diversity, of consciousness. So with this new science, with these scientific breakthroughs, we're able to also create a new and unitive narrative for ourselves. That great narrator of human experience, Joseph Campbell, speaks to this. He says, there's one fundamental conversation we need to have at the moment, and that's a conversation about unity. It's a conversation of our unity with each other, our unity with our planetary home, our unity with the ineffable source of all being, our unity with the entire cosmos. And what this new whole world view science is showing us is that unity in diversity. And it's a unity that actually reconciles, as all great narratives have, through the whole of our human story, the reconciliation, the integration of our inner and outer experiences, our inner being and our outer doing in the world. And crucially, unlike the old paradigm of materialist separation, which was showing us a universe that was devoid of meaning and purpose, this new understanding is imbued, fundamentally, is innately imbued with meaning and purpose. A universe whose very existence is meaningful and whose purpose is to evolve. And we are part of that. We stand on the bow wave of this evolutionary potential. This moment, this here and now, seems to me this moment of our collective choice. Do we choose to stay in that perspective of material separation, or do we come together to link up and lift up in this great adventure of remembering who we really are, of remembering and waking up to realize that we're inseparable, and also to inspire and empower us and give us authentic hope to envision and co-create a future that thrives for all life, where we literally also remember that we are children and potential co-evolutionary partners of our planetary home, with our planetary home, Gaia, and indeed the entire universe. I'll stop there.
Thank you very much. It was beautiful. And I have a few questions, if it's okay with you.
I'm glad you do, Eddie. I'd be shocked if you didn't.
Okay, if I understood properly, for you, unity it's a compassion, because when we are one, when we are in unity, we feel the same. Then we are in real compassion. That one way to describe unity, because it's abstract form for most of us. Because, like you said, it doesn't exist in our Western mind. It's something which is from Eastern, etc., from Native Americans. We didn't have the experience of feeling, of hearing and talking about unity. We are talking, but sometimes we are talking about a compassion. Is it the same for you?
Very much so. I mean, I sometimes say that this whole worldview, this new scientific paradigm, which of course, as you say, is converging with universal wisdom teachings, with universal spirituality and interspirituality and indigenous wisdom teachings, is a science of love. And it's a love that is that recognizes that diversity doesn't mean we have to agree with everybody. It's not fluffy love. It's a profound feeling of empathy and kinship. And kinship not just with, those close to us, but kinship with our entire human family and the entire family of Gaians. My new book, The Story of Gaia, I end it by saying, my hope for this book is that as and when people read it, they come to the end and know themselves to be Gaians. So it is this empathy, compassionate, unity and diversity where let's find ways to not just agree but disagree, but to disagree with love, with respect, with kindness, with empathy, with realizing that there are many, 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 many paths up the same mountain.
Yeah, the same goal. When you're talking about a unity, I think now we are facing the change of paradigm. And this change of paradigm, it's very likely that we'll face that new race will appear. It's AI and robots. Because if everything can have the consciousness, it's mean AI have the consciousness too. Do you think it's possible to feel this kind of unity or compassion to the robots or to AI?
It's a very interesting, and it's a really fundamental question, because I do feel very much this is our future. This is what I would say is that if you actually have a worldview, a whole worldview, such as unity and diversity, which we have, and I just want to add one more point here. This isn't just new ideas. This is evidence. This is scientific evidence at all scales of existence and across numerous fields of research. Wrote about the Cosmic Hologram, now in the Story of GAIA and beyond, and many others. I mean, the peer-reviewed science that is coming forward now, groups of scientists such as the Galileo Commission and others. The evidence is becoming so compelling. And I think that's where the difference is. I think that is a game changer. And it's coming at this incredible moment where not only have we come to an unsustainable, existentially threatening point in our journey, but at the same time, we have had the technologies that are actually almost ushering us into this next perhaps stage. Your holograms. We now realize that, our human holograms are amazing, but that their pixelation, their high definition pixelation, our universe pixelates its reality at 100 trillion times smaller than our HD holograms. We have our communications technologies that are based on digitized information. The conscious alphabet of our universe, that it embeds its meaning within, is digitized information. We have, in the English language, 26 letters. Our universe manages with 2 ones and zeros. And we are now able to create, to bring into existence this amazing perspective of AI. Now, for me, everything in reality is mind and consciousness. So, I will give my car a name, and I will be kind to my car, and my car is kind to me. So I have relationships with everything in my life, and compassionate relationships, I hope, with everything in my life. So as we bring forward AI, of course it's part of a conscious universe. How could it not be, after all I've been speaking of and the science is showing us? So it seems to me that our responsibility as elder brothers and sisters, as it were, is first of all for us to wake up and realize, because we're very clever, but are we wise? And it won't be cleverness, it seems to me, that will imbue AI with compassion. It will be wisdom. And it will be that understanding of the unified nature of reality and the fundamental nature of mind and consciousness that can guide us with wisdom, and not just our own perspectives. I mean, as my mum used to say, I'll talk with anybody. So having been speaking with discarnate, archetypal, incredible intelligences all my life, my own perception and perspective and experience is that we have enormous cosmic wisdom to draw on to help guide us, that then we can help guide this ushering into a new relationship with consciousness, that is what we call artificial intelligence. But in this perspective, the word artificial somewhat loses its relevance.
I like it very much. One thing was very important for me, what you said, that if I want to understand the universe, I first should understand myself.
It does help.
Yeah.
It helps enormously, because if you don't understand yourself, if you don't have those inner experiences of oneness, and if all of your sort of learning is intellectual, and you've been taught a model of materialist separation, then it's challenging to then go to that deeper perspective. And you and I, well, certainly I know my own story. I've been incredibly fortunate that my whole lifetime has been that curious adventure of that deep experiential perspective. And I do find that it's the scientists who've actually been willing to go on their own adventure of inner discovery that are really more able to be open to where the evidence is leading, because this is where the evidence is leading. But if you've not had any of those experiences, or been unwilling to perhaps open yourself to the possibility of that, it's a difficult journey to follow.
From your perspective, if everything will happen very good, how the world can look like, what we can achieve like a human race, say, in the next 30, 50 years, where we can be?
Oh my goodness. I sometimes liken where we are at the moment to when I was 4 years old and went to school for the first time. And the school gates opened and I just went, well, my mum said, I went, and I had no idea what that adventure was going to open into. It seems to me that the conversations that I've had with beings that are older and wiser than we are talk about their own journey of consciousness and awareness. And some years ago, I was given some guidance that said that perhaps many planetary civilizations, many planetary sentiences, actually that are able to birth biological organisms, as Gaia does, and get to this point of self-awareness, also perhaps get to this tipping point, this point of potential breakdown or breakthrough. And what differentiates between the breakdown and potential extinction and the breakthrough is coming to understand, experience, and embody such unity awareness. It seems to me that if, with all the evidence we now have, with all the wisdom teachings that we've had so long, now convergent with this compelling scientific evidence, that we have the opportunity to wake up. And literally, it seems to me that it will be waking up rather, we've had a dream of separation that's become a nightmare. And it almost feels to me that if we are able to wake up, to realize we're inseparable, to wake up from this dream that's becoming a nightmare, it's almost like when we do wake up individually from a nightmare, and we wake up and the sun's shining and the birds are singing outside, and we go, oh, thank goodness, that was awful. But look, a new day is dawning and the birds are singing and the trees are calling to me to play amongst them. It seems that that's where we might look back and realize that this is where we've been. And in 20 or 30 years, when we've woken up to remember we're inseparable, when we've come together to link up and lift up and level up and light up, when we are compassionate and kind and creative, it seems to me that that integration of all that we are, because this is also about integrating that sort of masculine and feminine aspects of who we are. This is almost like the birth, as the ancients talk of, the sacred marriage of feminine and masculine and the birth of the cosmic child.
Yeah,
It
here
feels
again.
that this is potentially the birth of the cosmic child as a species.
Then, what is the first things? What is the biggest problem or the biggest question which we have now and should be solved if we want to achieve the states of unity?
I think it's rather like a dance. Our beliefs drive our behaviors, but our behaviors also come back and amend our beliefs. So it seems to me that I don't think there's one answer per se. I think, though, it is finding a way to share this unitive narrative as widely as we possibly can, in whatever ways and languages we can, and invite people into not just its understanding, but its experiencing it. So as educators, as teachers, as fellow human beings, as creatives, I feel art has a huge part to play with this. And I think that one of the things that technology has a great part to play is helping to bring compassionate AI into being, to have this relationship, to actually show that, we can have profound relationships with the natural world as we say it, but of course we're all part of the natural world. How do we relate? How do we find ways of relating with each other at more profound, fundamental, loving ways? How do we teach our children, instead of teaching our children this old, unworkable, outworn paradigm, how do we help them to experience unity and diversity and the naturalness of it, and actually embody their own superpowers of intuition? Because intuition is a superpower. When we pay attention to synchronicities, when we work with our intuition, they're our way showers and our superpowers. It really is transforming our perception, our worldview, to transform our perceptions, to transform our behaviors. And as our behaviors change, there's a feedback mechanism. This is how Gaia works. It's not just one way, there is this feedback. It's a wisdom feedback. It's an evolutionary feedback.
Thank you very much. It was wonderful. It was a great pleasure. And I really like your work. I really love what you said. It's especially that I'm thinking very like you. But it's good that somebody else is thinking the same way.
Well, we're not alone.
Yeah, we are unity.
We are, and there are many, many, many others who are coming and really understanding this. And of course, we stand on the shoulders of giants, Eddie. We stand on the shoulders of giants who, through the whole of our whole human journey, has spoken of this. We just are now in an amazing, privileged position where the science, as a way of understanding, is converging with that profound wisdom and offering us, in that integration of inner and outer, of all that we are, an invitation, an authentic hope, an empowerment, and an inspiration, I hope, to step forward together and really consciously evolve. And that conscious evolution really involves our relationship with the whole world, and so, of course, with the intelligences that our technologies are also bringing forward now.
Thank you.